Okay, so you're all welcome. I hope our week was great. So, as a way of introduction, without wasting much of our time, my name is Speechman Abuta, and I'm the co-founder of PezBots. And for our new ones and the people that don't really know what PezBots is all about, it's an acronym that simply defines Pitchman Smile Boosters with kids living with disabilities, autism, and sickle cell. And what PISPOT stands for is that we advocate for kids with disabilities. We care for them. We love them. We have counseling and informative sessions for them, just like what we are in for this morning. We do the food banking. We give a sense of direction to as many that are lost. They don't know how to go about things. They don't know how to go about their kids living with disabilities. There are a whole lot of people here in Canada, new immigrants and people that have been here anyways, but it's just about information. And more especially where I'm speaking from Ontario, it says yours to discover. So if you don't have information, you might not be able to go far regarding how to take care of this wonderful kids living with disabilities. And so at this juncture, I would like to say that today is going to be another great meeting, another great session that we have come to learn and unlearn. And today we're going to talk about the applied behavioral analysis. I just want to make a little bit of a picture for us to be able to understand that when you are expecting something strange, when that comes to you, it's not going to be a surprise. Case in point, you are expecting armed robbers to come rage at your residence. I guess you just try as much as possible to make preparations, and either you put a burglary or you get a security and do all of that just for the robbers not to get in. So also, such information is being applied here. It's going to be applied here this morning because we're going to get information that would make you not to be surprised and be swept, and your feet being swept off the ground. And it's all about the applied behavioral analysis for parents, caregivers that have kids living with disabilities. It's very impertinent for you to be able to know those behaviors that are being expected from the kids with disabilities. And that is what we want to talk about, because if you have a better understanding of this behaviors that you're expecting, you're not going to get burnt out. It's not like you're not going to feel weak about it, but it's not going to be that worse off. And so that's the information that we really want to get today. And it might not just apply to you, it might also apply to some other friends, family, and that's the reason why I said you could also share. And at this particular point in time, we have a great resource that's gonna be a tool for us to get this information in the name of Tosi Ikotun. And I think you need to have a little bit of understanding of who this wonderful person is. He's a highly experienced board certified behavior analyst and certified speech therapist with over 10 years of dedicated service working with children and youth with various disabilities. So throughout her career, Tosin has demonstrated a strong commitment to helping individuals with autism and other developmental challenges by providing effective and personalized support in communication, behavior, and social development. So in addition to her extensive experience as a clinician, Tosin is also the proud owner of Dayspring Behavioral Therapeutic Services. It's actually a company dedicated to offering top-tier ABA as applied behavioral analysis and therapeutic services to children, youth, and families. Their holistic approach combines both behavioral approach. The holistic approach combines both behavioral analysis and speech therapy, ensuring that every individual receives comprehensive care tailored to their unique needs. And so it's this wonderful personality that we have in our midst, like right now. So we welcome Tosin to come and deliver that that we all need to hear. Tosin, you got the floor. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you and we thank you and we are honored. Bestbud says we are honored on behalf of Bestbud for you to be here. Please, can you have the floor? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Is my voice resonating okay?
Not really loud, but if you strain your ears, we might.
Oh no. Okay, somebody says they can hear me. Can you
Okay,
hear me
okay,
loud
okay,
and clearly?
okay.
Okay, okay, perfect. Um, Mr. Peachman, maybe if you increase your volume, I'm not sure if it's the volume on your end.
Yeah, I'm good now. I'm good now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone for commenting. Somebody said loud and clear as well. Okay, great. Um, Yes, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm just going to share my screen so that everyone can see my presentation. So, yes, my name is Tosin Ikotun. It's such a privilege and honor to be in this space with you all talking about behavior analysis. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and working with individuals with various disabilities is also something that I'm very passionate about. So, when I was given the opportunity to come and speak to you all, I took that as a chance for me to really spread the word about ABA and how it can benefit caregivers, how it can benefit individuals with various disabilities as well. So the goal of this presentation today is to get you all to understand the basics and practical application of ABA, as well as cover some key principles and techniques and real world application to help improve the lives of individuals with learning disabilities or developmental disorders. I do want to preface and say before I begin that ABA is a tool that is used in the autism community, but it's not just for individuals with autism or learning disabilities. It's also used for typical individuals as well to bring about behavior change. And it's used with children, youth, adults, the elderly. So I just want to preface by saying that it's not just necessarily for individuals with disabilities, but it is primarily used in the autism community. So I have a little blurb all about me. Mr. Peachman has given a wonderful introduction of who I am. So I'll just go through this quickly. So I am a board certified behavior analyst with over 10 years of experience working with children and youth with various disabilities ranging from autism to fetal alcohol syndrome to Down syndrome, etc. I am also certified in speech therapy, though I must say that I'm not a speech language pathologist, but I am certified in providing speech therapy to individuals and also providing comprehensive support to enhance communication and social skills. As Mr. Peachman already emphasized, I do own a company. I'm the founder of Dayspring Behavioral Therapeutic Services, and we're dedicated to offering, tailored ABA programs and therapeutic services to families and individuals with special needs. If you'd like to, get more info about the company or about me or use my services, our email is dayspringbehavioral@gmail.com. Again, it's dayspringbehavioral@gmail.com. Perfect. Okay. So, a little introduction about what we're talking about this morning. I've been talking about applied behavior analysis, ABA. What exactly is it? Well, put simply, ABA is a science, and it's just a scientific approach to understanding people's behaviors and how those behaviors affect the environment and how the environment can affect people's behaviors as well. Again, like I had mentioned, it is commonly used with individuals with autism and other different developmental disorders, though it is also used with typical children, typical adults, typical youths as well. So just getting right into things, there are some key principles of ABA that I find would be beneficial for caregivers and for individuals with disabilities as well. Again, these are just a few of the principles that we use in ABA. There are many principles that we have, but the top three that are often common in the field of applied behavior analysis are reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Again, that's reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. So I'm hearing somebody's background. If everyone could kindly just thank you so much. Thank you. So reinforcement is very simple. It just basically means the desired behavior is increasing. So, if a child is voiding in the toilet more often, that means the behavior is being reinforced. So reinforcement just means increasing the desired behavior. So there's something called positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. So positive reinforcement simply means just adding something in order to increase behavior. And negative reinforcement is just taking away something in order to increase behavior. And I'll give you an example of positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. And then you can perhaps think about your own life and see how you are positively or negatively reinforcing your child or your loved one with a disability or without one. So an example of positive reinforcement would be something like, your child finishes their homework and you give them extra playtime. And now you notice that it's making your child more likely to finish their homework. That's just what positive reinforcement is. You've added more playtime, and this increases the behavior of finishing homework. Whereas negative reinforcement is your child cleans their room because they want you to stop nagging them about it. So it causes them to be more likely to clean their room again in the future. So basically, the behavior of cleaning the room is increased because your nagging is removed from the equation, and that would be negative reinforcement. If you go into punishment, again, we hear punishment and we think, oh, this negative thing, this scary thing. But punishment just simply means decreasing behavior. So if a behavior is decreasing, that means that behavior is being punished. That's just what punishment is. And again, just like reinforcement, there's positive punishment and then there's negative punishment. And it's the same concept. With positive punishment, you're adding something in order to decrease the behavior. Whereas in negative punishment, you're removing something in order to decrease the behavior. So again, real life examples just to have us thinking about what areas we're reinforcing or punishing in our own lives. An example of positive punishment would be, if a child talks back to you. If your child talks back, you give them extra chores. This will make them less likely to talk back to you in the future. So that would be positive punishment. You're adding extra chores in order to decrease talking back. Another example of negative punishment would be your child is misbehaving, and like during dinner, they're misbehaving, so you take away their tablet. So this causes them to be less likely to misbehave in the future. So that would be negative punishment. So you're taking away the tablet to reduce talking back behavior. And then an example of extinction would be just reducing behaviors by withholding reinforcement. So you're not reinforcing anymore. You're not You're not applying or removing, you're just withholding reinforcement. So an example of that would be, a child is in the classroom, they love getting the teacher's attention, they're disruptive in the classroom, yelling, making noise, and usually the teacher gives them attention by saying, little Johnny, don't yell out in class, or little Johnny, stop throwing things, and the child loves it. But if you want to put that behavior on extinction, anytime little Johnny is making noise, the teacher needs to ignore and don't reinforce, and eventually the behavior will subside and will go away, and that would be extinction. So I want this to be an interactive session with people contributing, typing, giving examples. So does anybody have any example of reinforcement or punishment or even extinction that they can think of? Feel free to type in the chat
use the raise hand button.
or use what, sorry?
The raise hand button. So
Yes, or use the raise hand, exactly, or use the raise hand button, or even type in the chat as well. I'll give us a few minutes or seconds, and then I'll move on. So any examples of reinforcement, punishment, or extinction that you can think of? Yes, I see somebody named Margaret has their hand up.
Hi, Tosin, and good morning to everyone on the platform.
Good morning.
Thank you for all the explanations so far. I'm sorry I came in late, but I think I joined when you were explaining reinforcement as a tool to redirecting some of our challenged individuals. Okay, reinforcement. I think it could be negative or positive, right? I want to clear this, like you explained. Okay. May I know the difference between reinforcement and bribe?
Yes, that's a common question that people tend to ask, and that's a very good question because they come across as very similar. But a bribe oftentimes comes before the behavior occurs. So I'll give you an example. You know, for example, let's say you want somebody to do something for you. Before they've done that thing for you, you're like, here, have, I don't know, $500. Here you go, here's the $500, please do this for me. So you're giving them the reinforcement even before they've done anything for you. You're trying to bribe them to do something for you, so you're giving them the reinforcement before the act is done. Whereas reinforcement is where you have the reinforcement, let's say in your hand, and you're letting them know that, hey, this is what you're working for, this is what you're working towards, you need to do this, this, and this before you can even get your fun sticker or your fun toy or whatever it is. So they need to do the action, do the act before they get anything at all. I like to use like adult examples, for instance. Oftentimes, we go to work, we do our jobs at work, and we expect to be, reinforced by getting paid. So we need to first do our jobs, and then we get our reinforcement of getting paid, and that encourages us to continue doing our jobs. Oftentimes, our boss isn't gonna give us the money before we even do the work. We need to do our jobs, and then we get paid, and we're reinforced for doing our jobs. So I hope that kind of clarifies the difference between what a bribe is and what reinforcement is. Reinforcement is just motivating you to do the work.
Okay, so punishment is sorry, please. Bribe is what you offer or what you give before the task is completed, right? Okay, and reinforcement is what you give after the task has been completed.
Yes, it's like a consequence of the task. Yeah.
Okay, so in a situation where you come by an individual and probably the previous caregiver has been used to giving bribe. Okay, like giving such an individual something before they accomplish their task. And here are you facing this individual, and the individual is on the loggerhead with you. No, until I get this. We can't buy something like that on the field. So what do you do? And you as an individual, like you as a caregiver at that moment, you believe so much in the reinforcement, like accomplish your task before I give you anything. For instance, maybe you are in a class with such an individual. I say, oh, hey, you already know that such an individual likes to play with their tablet or whatever they delight so much in. I say, hey, Michael, do this, then I give you your tab to play with. And such an individual is like, oh, some of them are very, very smart. Now, all the look on his face, the body language is telling you, no, I have to have it before I do it. So what do you do? That's a challenge in the field. So what do you do as an individual to overcome such a challenge? And at that moment, and bearing in mind that you have to prevent them from escalation. Okay?
Yeah, when you finish, you pick cover it because somebody might just pass mistakenly.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. I think somebody
Sorry
Can hear
about
me.
that. I think someone, I've just unmuted them.
Oh, okay. So please, can you throw more light on how to tackle such a challenge as a caregiver?
Yes, that's a very common challenge. Oftentimes, children come from homes where they're just given whatever they want, even like they're not they don't have the expectation of being, held accountable for things. And there are a couple of suggestions that I would give. It would just be one, speaking with the primary caregiver or whoever is watching the individual to be on the same page as them. Explaining, because if you're the one enforcing the rules and they go home or they go elsewhere and the rules aren't being enforced, you're going to be getting a lot of challenging behaviors with you and not very many challenging behaviors with the other party because they're just giving them whatever they want. And so one is to have an open dialogue with whoever the other party is, letting them know that it's for the benefit of the child that we stay on the same page and ensure that we're not giving fun things before the task is done or before the behavior is observed. And it'd be great if you had like other professionals as well with you to kind of back you up in that regard. Another thing is building rapport with the individual or with the child or with the person. You yourself have to build a really good rapport with them so that when it comes time to set demands, they're more open and willing to listen to your demands, when they know that, hey, I don't want to displease this person because they're my friend and they're somebody that I have fun with. And I'll just do this thing so that I can get this fun thing and we can still have a good relationship. So pairing, we call it pairing in the ABA world, but it's just building rapport with the client is another good way to kind of get them to um, walk in line with the instructions that you're giving. Another thing I would say, and this one is very, very, very important, is to follow through. I know that oftentimes it's so easy to just be like, oh, okay, like just try, and then nothing's working, and then just giving them the reinforcement. But it's so important to follow through because if they learn that they can get away with um, just negative behavior all the time, it's going to be difficult to get them to work in the way that you want them to. So it's very important to follow through and to ensure that you are setting boundaries, healthy boundaries for them. So those are some of the tips and suggestions that I can give regarding that scenario. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, Tolu. This is your explanation. Yes, thank you so much. It's like leading to like so many things. We experience what we experience on the field because some people are just lenient in carrying out their responsibilities. You understand? And maybe when it's your turn to try doing what you ought to do for an individual, sometimes or many a time it turns the other way, like negative reactions. You find out that the individual reacts and even going to the level of escalating. And when you dig deep into this, you find out that some caregiver, probably maybe because they don't want to face challenges, or they want to prevent some things, they tend to on their own, alter the plans of so many individuals, making things difficult for all others, to go on with the routine of such an individual, and it brings a lot of issues. Anyway, I hope we'll all do the needful when we need to. And I think one thing I know for sure about these individuals is they know their routines. They are very smart. And when they see people that are new in rendering care to them, they tend to be so smart and play on you as a caregiver. So we have to be firm on them. We have to be firm, like going to the roots and applying and going by their plans so that we won't keep having issues. It's becoming so rampant now on the field, understand? Because some people tend to be lenient, and when it's your turn to do the needful, it turns to something else. I'm just trying to say this in order to encourage every one of us. When you are firm and you want to do what you need to do, don't feel bad. Just keep on, and I'm sure we'll get there one day. Yeah. And the moment the individuals know that you are always on your feet to do what you need to do for them, they respect you for that. They do. Thank you so much, Tosin.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
all of us on the platform.
Yes, thank you for your question. I also see some comments here as well. I guess some people were speaking on reinforcement and punishment. Somebody said go sit at an isolated space where he wouldn't play with other kids and toys. I think you're referring to maybe punishment in this regard. In the field of ABA, it might be seen as not necessarily very ethical to kind of isolate the child from peers and from the group. But what can be done is, if there's a particular toy that the child really, really loves and enjoys, perhaps whenever the child is, behaving in the way that you want for them to behave, reinforcing that behavior with a toy that they like and with a toy that they enjoy. And then when they're, behaving in a way that like is not very pleasing, then removing that toy from their vicinity. Another person said, go read a book and the kids should explain what they read. I'm not sure if you're referring to reinforcement or punishment in that regard. Somebody asked, what can I do in a situation where the child doesn't understand most commands yet, and they're 4 years old? I would recommend, again, I'm just speaking based on the information that I have in this text, but I would perhaps start from maybe one step instructions rather than, because oftentimes with a 4-year-old, we're saying things like, go get your shoes and sit on the chair and tie your shoes, or go get your jacket and your boots and put it on. And that might be a bit complex for a child that is not really understanding instructions yet. So maybe start with simple one-step instructions, practice that, like give me a high five or clap your hands, and use different ways of assisting the child. So for example, I think somebody said modeling. So somebody said, have you tried showing and teaching the child? So things like modeling. So you're showing the child what you want them to do and then having them do it, or even providing physical assistance. So like, for example, if you want the child to clap, if you say, clap your hands and they're not doing it, you can, with their, consent, you can take their hands, put it together, clap it for them, and practice it with them continuously. That's just the 5-minute explanation of things that you can do. That might perhaps help them to be able to learn one-step directions. Miss Augustina has her hand raised.
Hi, thank you, Tolu. So far, quite educative. My question is more like a follow-up to the first question, and it has to do with some of us, we have special needs kids who go to school, and just like she did mention, some of the caregivers in the school do not feel like, they feel like, I want to give him chocolate. Although the parents have already said, do not give my child chocolate. But because they know that the child likes it, they just give it to him or her just to have their way around their shift and move on. Something like tablets gets him escalated once you want to take it away from him. But because it's something he can take and spend the whole babysitting period in the school period, they tend to give it to him. You are not there as a parent. In such scenario, I don't know, is there any professional advice we could get from you on how to handle it, even though you have made it known to the management that you don't want your child to be given these items as a means of, I don't know if it's positive or negative reinforcement in their own view. Although sometimes I see that some of them are not well knowledgeable because they are just EA, just be with the child until your time is up, you move to the next person. But what can we do from our own end in order to get the best out of this situation? Thank you.
Yes, that sounds quite unethical. If you have told the teachers that, for example, chocolate, you don't want your child, or you don't want the child having chocolate, and they're still giving it to the child, that's highly unethical. So what I would recommend is perhaps having it in writing, perhaps in an email, or writing a letter to the classroom teacher. And if based on that they're still going about doing the same thing, I would then take it up to like maybe the principal, or the vice principal. If they're still continuing even with that, I would recommend even like the superintendent or something to take it to higher authority, because if you as a parent or you as a caregiver have mentioned that you do not want your child having certain things and they're still giving the child, then it's something to be taken seriously and to be spoken to higher authority. But I would have everything in writing. I think that's something that needs to be done in writing. Right. I'm going to move on to the next slide.
Basketball. Thank you, Father.
You can't help anybody.
Someone's mic is on. Thank you. So next we're going to go into some ABA techniques. These are common with professionals, these are common with professionals, but I encourage us to try to incorporate this in our homes or in our schools or wherever as well, because they can be very, very helpful. They can be a helpful tool to use. So I'm just going to talk about 4 techniques, and those are discrete trial training, natural environment training, task analysis, prompting, and fading. So I'll go into detail with each one just so that we are aware of what they are and start thinking about how we can use it in our environment as well. So discrete trial training basically just means a structured way of teaching. I find that it's what most people think ABA is, just sitting at the table and showing the child flashcards. But ABA is much more than that. But discrete trial training just means, a structured way of teaching a task. So, for example, you're seated at the table with your student or with your child or with your learner, and you're showing them different items and asking them to identify what it is. As an example, that would be discrete trial training. Another example is natural environment training or natural environment teaching. So this basically means teaching the child or teaching the individual in the person's natural environment. So I'll give an example of children, for instance. Children often learn best in a play setting. If you want a child to really learn something or really grasp something, it's recommended to teach them through play. So rather than, sitting at a table with a 3-year-old and showing them pictures of colors and saying, what color is this? Blue. What color is this? Red. It's recommended that you really get down to their level and you teach them through play. So for example, if you're trying to teach them colors, you would have, let's say, a red fire truck and, move it around. Woo, beep, beep, beep. Here comes the truck. It's a red truck. Wow, the red truck is going. And just through play, children learn best. So if you're trying to teach them colors, I wouldn't recommend sitting at the table or having a thick textbook and going through colors with them. What I would do is really get down to their level and play with them. And through play, they learn. And then task analysis. Well, so what a task analysis is just breaking down complex steps into simpler steps. So breaking down complex tasks into simpler steps. So for example, if you're trying to, let's say your child is a youth, 13 years old, and they're learning how to make a meal for themselves or make a snack for themselves. That's a very complex task. So you'd break it down into achievable steps and teach them that way. Or let's say they're trying to brush their teeth by themselves. You would break down the steps of brushing teeth and maybe have like a visual or a poster on the bathroom wall guiding them on how to brush their teeth. Let's say the child is not able to read. You could have pictures that kind of break down what to do. First, turn on the tap, then get your toothbrush. Next, water your toothbrush. Next, put the toothpaste on. So breaking it down into smaller achievable steps that they can follow. And then prompting and fading is just assistance. If you're prompting someone, you are helping them to be able to do that behavior. I talked a little bit about prompting in the beginning. For example, when you're trying to teach a child to follow an instruction, for example, let's say you're teaching them how to clap their hands. Prompting would be something like modeling or showing them what to do, or taking their hand and putting it together and showing them how to clap. That would be an example of prompting or assisting. And fading would be, our ultimate goal is for our children to be independent. So we're not always going to be there to help them. We're not always going to be there to prompt or to assist them. So we want to be able to slowly remove ourselves. So that is where fading comes in. We want to fade or remove our assistance gradually. We're not just going to go from helping them to not helping them at all, but we're going to, slowly fade ourselves out so that eventually, ultimately, they're able to do things independently. I see some comments. Somebody said, I tell my son the instruction, pause, repeat about 3 times. And if he doesn't do it, I help him do it while repeating the instructions. For example, during bath time, I tell him turn around, but he did not understand it. So I turn him around. I've observed he has started turning around now when I tell him to, he is 3. Yeah, so that's even an example of prompting. So you give the instruction. If they're not doing it independently, you repeat the instruction with assistance and with help. So that's a really good tool that you're using. You're doing ABA and you might not even realize that you're doing it. So that's great. Somebody asked, what can I do with a nonverbal 4-year-old who rarely sits still, found it difficult to do some of the exercises or tasks? It's hard for, typical 4-year-old to sit still anyway. They play around and things like that. Perhaps keeping them busy with fidget toys can help keep them calmer. And you found it difficult for them to do the exercises or tasks. I don't know that much detail. It might depend on their level of understanding. So maybe reducing the difficulty of the task, or maybe modifying it for them to be able to better understand what your expectations are. I can speak to the sitting still, perhaps having something that they can fidget with or play with while seated is something that you could consider. But I do want to say that for any 4-year-old, it's very hard to sit still. They need to run around, play around. They're very curious. So there's also that. Somebody said, what would you advise a mom who wants to be certified as an ABA provider in Canada solely to help her child? That's very admirable. And I know a few parents that went into the field of ABA to help their children. What I would recommend is perhaps going to, there are different schools that provide certificates in ABA. For example, I think Georgian College, Seneca, they might have certificates in ABA, as well as there's something called the 40-hour RBT training. I'm going to type it. That you can look into, and it's just a 40-hour training on basic ABA skills that that is really beneficial and helpful for you to learn different ABA techniques and skills, and that could be helpful to you as well. I think somebody, I don't know if somebody named Joy has their hand up or if it's been there before.
Hi,
Hi.
thank you. So I was the one asking about the child staying still. So we've tried different types of toys, like something that he could fidget with, but we found like my house is full of different types of toys. He doesn't engage with any of them. He doesn't like the only things he engages with are things that are not toys, like regular kids. So I found it hard, but like just in terms of simulating, what do you mean by fidgeting toys? Maybe there's something else I can find that's is not a toy and maybe I can give to him. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so again, it depends on, I don't want to get too technical, but it depends on the function of the child's behavior. So, is the child looking for sensory input? Is the child looking for, is the child trying to get release from their body? So again, it depends on what because I don't know
Yeah.
what the behavior is, but things like, what are those things called? Like not slime, but there's like something slime like that maybe the child can play with if it's a sensory child, or if water play is something that you could consider, or there are these squishy toys. I don't know the name for them, but there are these toys
Okay.
that squish that can get their hands busy and moving. If it's something like they want to jump around or they want to let go of energy, there's things like the home trampolines. Like there are these small trampolines that the child can just jump on and just get all their energy out. So it really depends on what the function of that behavior is before I can really.
Sorry, just one thing. So like I said, apart from toys, he likes to touch on skin. So he can come to your hand and touch your skin, and that suits him. So, but I haven't found something else that simulates that. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know of anything else.
Yeah. So that, from what I'm hearing, that sounds like a sensory thing. So he likes the feel of skin. I feel, I don't know if you have the squishy toys, that kind of feels like skin to me. There's I don't, if you Google squishy toys, there are these like
Okay.
skin like material that might be something that works for him if he likes the feel of skin.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes. Somebody also suggested Play-Doh, um, which is another possibility as well. Perfect. All right. Now we're going to go into the ABCs of behavior. So this is fun stuff that I enjoy as well. So ABCs of behavior basically refers to antecedent, behavior, and consequence. So the antecedent of a behavior is just, what happens directly before the behavior occurs. The behavior is, what is the observable action that's happening? And then consequence means what happens directly after the behavior. So we like to look at the ABCs of behavior to figure out what's causing the behavior to happen. So like, why is this child throwing a tantrum? Like if the behavior is, crying, what's happening before the crying? What does the crying look like, and what's happening after the crying? Gathering some of this information is one of the ways that we can find out what is causing the behavior, and when we know what's causing the behavior, we can then find out how we can help to fix things. So I'll give like an example of ABC and what that looks like. So there's a scenario where, you know, the child is throwing a pencil or and it hits the desk, for instance. So the antecedent, or what happens before the behavior, could be something like the teacher asks the child to complete a difficult math assignment. Then the child throws the pencil and it hits the desk. That would be the behavior. And then the consequence would be the teacher removes the assignment and gives the child a break. So little Bobby's teacher says, okay, it's time to do 100 questions of math. Little Bobby throws the pencil, and the teacher says, oh, okay, it's okay, little Bobby, no more math, and takes the paper away. So here we can see, you know, the function or the reason for the behavior is escape. He's trying to escape the difficult math task, and he's successfully done so because throwing a tantrum and throwing the pencil got the teacher to remove the math equation. And so next time there's something hard that little Bobby has to do, he's gonna throw the pencil again because it's been reinforced by the teacher. So that's just an example of antecedent, behavior, and consequence, and how we can use that to kind of find out what the function of the behavior is, or why the behavior is happening. Okay. Almost done. Yeah, somebody suggested a velvet beanie bag or a soft fuzzy blanket. Maybe those things work. Anything that's similar to the texture of skin would be helpful, because we know that that's what he's trying to feel, what he's trying to experience. So how does ABA work in practice? Some of you might have ABA providers and have, you know, BCBAs working with you or working with your child. This is just going to provide you with a little tidbit of why they do what they do or what it is they're doing with your child. So when we get a client or we get a case, we'll often take ABC data to try to figure out, you know, what's causing the behavior. If it's a very complex case and the data that we're provided isn't really showing anything for why the behavior is occurring, what we can do is going into a functional behavior assessment. And so that gives us a deeper understanding of the reason behind the behavior and why it's occurring. And then once we've gathered information from the functional behavior assessment, we can then create a behavior intervention plan. And so this involves, you know, strategies of how we can either continue to increase the behavior or decrease the behavior, depending on what it is that we're trying to do. And then once we create the behavior intervention plan, we then start to collect data. And this is where oftentimes parents and caregivers and other professionals in an interdisciplinary team come together to kind of work together. So we like data and we want to see data, so we can ask parents, hey, can you take data of how many times little Susie throws a tantrum? Or can you take data on, you know, how well your son is brushing his teeth during the day? So we compile all that data and then we analyze it to see what we can get from the data, whether there's a trend of increasing behavior or there's a trend of decreasing behavior, or the data is all over the place. We analyze that, and depending on what we see, we'll continue to modify the program that we create. Somebody said, what could the teacher have done better in the little Bobby example that wouldn't result in a tantrum? Yeah, so that's a good question. Yes, so the little Bobby example was, you know, the teacher introduced an assignment, a hard assignment, and said, you know, time to do your math. And little Bobby threw a pencil and threw a tantrum. And the teacher said, oh, okay, never mind, you know, no math. So what the teacher could have done is, let's say she introduced the math assignment, little Bobby throws the pencil. Don't take away the assignment. What you do is provide functional communication. So appropriate ways to say no, basically, because throwing a pencil, throwing things, those are not appropriate ways. So the teacher could have modeled, oh, you can say not right now, or you can say it's a lot of work, or it's too hard, or whatever. Give the child the communication tools that they need in order to reject what you've provided them. So then little Bobby will most likely say, oh, I don't want to do the math work. And the teacher will say, oh, okay, I'll come back in, I don't know, 5 minutes, and I want you to do 3 questions, and then you can have a little break. And little Bobby will say, oh, okay. 5 minutes later, the teacher comes and doesn't give little Bobby 100 questions. She'll say, oh, Bobby, thank you for using your words and telling me that this is hard. You can do 3 questions, have a little break, and then come back and do 3 more questions. And little Bobby does his 3 questions, gets a break, and comes back and does more questions. So ultimately giving the child, you know, the tools to be able to communicate better. Because, you know, sometimes work is hard and sometimes you don't feel like doing work. As long as you're communicating appropriately, there's always room for leeway. And, you know, it doesn't have to be so rigid, like you must do your 50 questions of math. There's no if, ands, or buts. No, we're all human, and we need to be able to just give our kids the tools that they need to be able to advocate for themselves and say, no, this is a lot of work. Are we able to, you know, modify it? I hope that answers the question. That's just one example. There are many ways the teacher could have handled that better. All right.
So I have a
I'm
question.
sorry, Chelsea. Augustina, please, can you take down your hand so we don't get it confused with a new hand? Yeah, I think she probably forgot. Probably we'll just do it for her.
Okay.
Okay.
Somebody else had a question.
Yeah, Deborah, you can go on with your question.
Yeah, so what if it's a non-verbal kid that you're trying to get to do something and they don't really understand instructions and you know they don't want to do it? Like, how would you then make them do it?
Yeah, so hopefully the non-vocal child has a communication tool, because that would be unethical if they did not and there was no other means of communicating. So whether it's picture exchange or a communication device, what I would do is the same kind of idea and the same kind of concept is go through their device or whatever tool they use to communicate and prompt that. We talked about prompting earlier. Assist them, maybe do hand over hand and point to no thank you, or no, or not right now, whatever device, whatever it says on their device, and teach them to do that and say, oh, you're not ready, that's fine. I'll come back in, I don't know, however many minutes you want to come back, and you're going to do 1 question depending on what you know they can handle. We'll do 1 question, and then you slowly start introducing it incrementally. You don't just like say, you know, no, you have to do all 20 questions right now because I asked you to. Like that's very that's not going to work. So, and if let's say the child says no to even 1 question, what I would do is, oh, that's fine, I'm going to put it on your table, and you have to, you know, work on being tolerant of even having the math question on your table. You don't have to do it right now, but I'm going to put it on your table. And if the child is like responsive to that, you would reinforce and praise him or her and say, wow, I love how like you were okay with me putting the math question on the table. That's amazing. And then you can then go on to them even holding the pencil. Once they're able to do that, you're gonna like praise them and be like, wow, you held the pencil really nicely, them writing their names. So just incrementally and systematically getting them to just start the work would be helpful. So yeah, so the same concept, functional communication, get them to use their device to say no, or say no thank you, or not right now, and then slowly just introducing the math problems to them. That makes sense. Perfect. Okay. We're going to go into how ABA works in practice. So we talked about functional behavior assessment, we talked about behavior intervention plans, and then data collection and analysis. Let me just, yeah, so it's just ABA in everyday life. So as caregivers, as parents, as you know, professionals, if we want to use ABA in everyday life, some things that we can do is use reinforcement in the home. So identify what is rewarding to your child and what motivates them, and use that to your advantage. So I want to preface by saying that what's motivating or reinforcing to one child might not be reinforcing to another child. So tickles, for example, people assume everybody loves tickles, but some kids might have sensory difficulties and might not like tickles at all. And so if you think tickling a child is something that they're enjoying or is motivating to them, that would be, a gross misunderstanding. So I think getting to know the child that you're working with, getting to know the child that you have, and finding out what they enjoy and what you can use as reinforcement for them would be very helpful and would be a helpful tool for you to have in your pocket as you go about your day to day with your child. Because it's kind of like us. You can't expect somebody to work an 8-hour shift and not reinforce them with with money. Honestly, the only reason we go to work is one of the only reasons we go to work is because we're getting paid. People don't just work for free. And so kind of the same concept with our kids and with the people in our lives. Oftentimes, there has to be that motivation to do things and motivation to engage. Some children need more motivation than others. And then it's very, very important to create a routine. Routine is very important for children because then they'll know what to expect. It helps reduce anxiety, it helps increase predictability. So having a routine is very helpful. I know that life happens and, it's not always possible to follow a routine, but as much as possible, just have a kind of structure in the home to help make transitions easier and smoother. And then lastly, just encouraging communication. We talked about some communication just now, but just encourage communication, encourage them to use their words. Some kids are not vocal, but use their communication tools. So whether it's a device or it's picture exchange cards or even pointing to be able to advocate for themselves and also to get their needs and wants met. And then some tips for caregivers. I know that caring for an individual with developmental needs is not an easy task. Caring for anyone is a difficult feat. And so it's important to really be encouraged. And these tips are meant to encourage you all to keep at it. It's not easy. It's not always going to be all dandelions and roses, but one thing that's important to do is to be consistent. Consistency is key in applying ABA techniques. I think I spoke about it earlier. To follow through, be consistent, don't give up. Another thing is to stay positive, focus on reinforcing more than punishing. Even in the field of ABA, we as professionals tend to focus more on reinforcement before we go into any punishment because we want to reinforce the behaviors that we want to see rather than focusing on the things that we don't want to see. Because when we reinforce what we want to see, the things that we don't want to see will just naturally fall off. And then lastly, collaborate with other professionals. Work closely with people like BCBAs, ABA therapists, and because some cases are just a lot and it's a lot to handle as one person. And so collaborate with other professionals like BCBAs and therapists. We're there to help, we're there to assist, we're there to make life as easier as we possibly can. And that concludes my presentation to you all today. Thank you so much for listening. Again, my email is dayspringbehavioral@gmail.com. Feel free to ask any questions there, meet with me for a consult, or even services if you'd like. I'm always happy to help, and I'm free to answer a few more questions if you have any as well. And I want to thank the Peachmans for this opportunity to speak with you all today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was really an interactive session. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Do we still have any questions? We can take more questions because we still have some time left.
Thank you, Tosin. Thank you.
No problem.
I'll just be on the lookout. Okay. In the absence of any questions, if we don't have any questions, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who has joined this session. Truly, I'm sure we're all leaving equipped. We're all leaving with at least one important thing to note on how to take care of our kids or any of the people that we're offering care to. So it might not really be kids, might just be an adult or youth, as she first said. Um, I'm sure we have something to go home with. So I'm going to share the slides. Can we get the slides, Tosin? So that we can
Yeah.
share it. Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna share the slides in the group if you're in the group, but if you're not, please send Tosin an email, or you can send us an email putting it down, Smile Boosters.
Would you also be sharing the recording?
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna share the recording in the group as well if you're in the group. But if you're not, you can just send us an email. I need the recording and I need the slides as smileboostersca@gmail.com. I'm dropping it right now.
Okay, thanks.
So that way we can get you can have a copy of this. You can just go over and over to play the recording. It's usually helpful. Okay, so PESBOT actually has a WhatsApp group that we just send me an email. I'll put you in the group. Okay, if you want to send me an email on this email, and I will send you the link to join the group. So we have a WhatsApp group where we share informations like this. We host informative sessions monthly. And then we have Friday convos that we started up chatting on what people are to expect. We put out questions so people share their opinions. People are learning on what to do or how to do some other things. So it's just a group of an enclosed place where we appreciate each other, and it's a no judgment zone, because in this work we need each other. That's the truth. Once you have found yourself to be a parent or a caregiver that is assisting or supporting any child with disability or any youth or anyone, sometimes it can be overwhelming and you just need someone to talk to or a group of people to interact with. And so we have that group, and that's what we do in the group. So you can send us an email and I will just send you the link. Okay, okay, let me get the link then. Okay, that's okay, I can get that. Okay, so that's the link. You can click on the link to join the group. Okay, Ruth, I'm gonna share that with you on your email as well. The WhatsApp group link is in the chat box in case you want to join. Someone will let you in once you click on the link. Okay, once again, thank you so much for joining this session. We really appreciate it. We're having another session on sickle cell coming up in the next 2 weeks. And we also have, like I said, the convo every Friday, and a financial session also will be coming up before the end of this month, just to teach us on how to make extra income. We know that some of us are new to Canada, some of us are stay-home moms because of our kids. We might just have some side hustles, even if you're working, just to make an extra income. So we're bringing someone to teach us on how we're going to be able to do that. So just look out. We always put it out in groups, and we also put it out firsthand in our advocacy group. All right, thank you so much, and have a good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and God bless you. Bye.
Thank you.